on Secretary Duke, certainly all impressive as heck. He's been before he was Secretary of Aging, he was a AAA Director in Bucks County.
The Pennsylvania Department of Aging, and we believe it defines our future. Governor Tom Corbett calls upon us to look towards a future that also, though, is financially sound and will in the future make sure that we're on stable ground in terms of finances. We join with the governor as we provide these services to make sure that for those programs where we can, there's an evidence base. There are numbers that tell us, there is information that tell us we're doing what's appropriate. We're making an impact, and we can measure that impact moving forward.
I hope I'm not out of line asking this question, but I truly need to understand what's going to happen.
Sure.
If this plan on the lottery sale would go through, that would change the contributions directly to Area Agency on Aging. And, you know, is that going to hurt senior citizens in the long run?
Well, yep, okay. Is that anything else?
Well, no, you can kind of get,
I'll fill in the, So the question was from the Commissioner about, you know, if the private management agreement does proceed, will it impact the dollars available to our senior citizens? And the answer for me would be yes, it's going to impact, but in a good way. If the company that's been selected, Camelot, has an annual profit commitment they must meet, moves the risk to a corporation versus the taxpayer. And they have to, in this first year, meet this level of $50 million. And if they don't, the company had to put $150 million in cash on the table, not from lottery funds, from their own funds, to serve as a reserve. And if the annual profit commitment isn't met, they have to draw down on the reserve. If the reserve goes down to $50 million, they have to replenish that reserve back to $150 million. So we're guaranteed at a minimum that $50 million would come to us as a result of the private management agreement with Camelot. Now, some have argued that the expenses attributed to a private management agreement are expenses we should be concerned about, and isn't in fact that taking money away from our older citizens. And when you really think about it, you have to think of the net revenue. The dilemma we face is this, and I've said to some in opposition, if not this, then what? Population's going up, and the lottery funding stream as we know it has been doing this over the years. And it's not a predictable source of revenue. So in a year like last year where we had a couple mega millions, I think, and high game drawing, a lot of participation, there was a growth in revenue, and it was a really good year. But 2 years ago, the lottery didn't meet its targets, and we had to draw down on reserves in the state to help sustain what we had budgeted to do. And so because of that lack of stability in the lottery, what the agreement with Camelot does, so growing population, instability in lottery, it tells us here's the annual profit commitment each year. Here's what we're going to have. And because we know what we're going to have, and it's at a higher income level, it puts us in a much better position to plan and provide for services to our older Pennsylvanians. I hope that helps. That's a lot.
It does, but may I be
to
allowed follow up?
Sure you can.
Okay. Businesses are cycles. They go on a bell curve. They have good times and they go down. It's just a fact of life.
Right.
What if Camelot has the downturn and doesn't have the money to put in? What then?
We don't anticipate that, but the citizens of Pennsylvania are protected. The question was, what if Camelot has a downturn like any other business and doesn't have the money to give us the reserve? There are protection clauses for cause and convenience in the private management agreement. And so if there is a lack of performance or outright acts that we don't think are good, because it's still Pennsylvania's lottery, and they're required to submit all business activity and plans to us as a Commonwealth for our approval. They can do nothing on their own independently without our approval. And the clauses in the contract can call for dissolution of the agreement, either if they don't meet the performance criteria, or they're performing badly, or we just decide we don't want to do this anymore. We can dissolve the relationship. So there is protection in the agreement for Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, some have said there's only one bidder and only Commonwealth. There were 3 bidders. and 2 dropped out. That's a business decision. You mentioned business. And the last one that dropped out because the contract protects the Commonwealth too much. I don't think that's a problem, protecting the Commonwealth, but that's so I hope that helps. Thanks.
Okay, the other 2 bidders, were they within the United States?
Both of them, I'm not as familiar. I think they both also had either partial foreign ownership or entire foreign ownership. The people that endeavor in this field of lottery management, there aren't many American companies that are involved. One American company is involved is Scientific Games, and they have an agreement that takes us through, I think, 3 or 4 years to be a partner with the successful bidder. And also, when you think about this company being from the United Kingdom, there's a couple of things we should clarify. One is the contract as it's written requires them to do 80% of their business, 80% of their employment, 80% of their operations in Pennsylvania. Second is Camelot has decided to incorporate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and pay all taxes as any other business operates in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So while yes, they have their origin in the United Kingdom and they're related to the Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, we have to realize that they have decided to incorporate here in Pennsylvania and required by contract to do 80% of their business here.
Okay, I have another question.
Sure.
The employees that are currently working for, the lottery.
Yes.
What will happen to them? Will they become a part of Camelot?
230 employees are currently employed by the Pennsylvania Lottery, and we're grateful to them each and every day. I was told I was the first Secretary of Aging to make at least 2 visits to express my gratitude to them for what they do, and they do a good job. 70 of them will remain as Commonwealth employees to monitor the agreement. Remember, it's Pennsylvania's lottery. We're entering into a management contract. They will remain on to do that very function. The remainder will be interviewed and offered opportunities of employment with Camelot. And those who are not employed by Camelot, the governor has committed to try to find jobs in the Commonwealth for them. And so they may have a different employer. And Camelot has yet to decide on whether they would allow or not allow, so it's an open book right now, employees to remain organized.
Okay, also, will they allow senior citizens to be witnesses?
I imagine that won't change. They can't, again, they can't change anything. We went from Gus to Penny. Now Penny's out there, right? So any marketing, change in brand, change in game, change in how the drawing's done, change in how the drawing's witnessed, all has to be approved by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I would doubt that that would be a change we'd want to do, that citizens will still witness those drawings. I was amazed. Have you been a witness?
Yes, I have.
Well, good. I was amazed. How long did that take? It's like a 10-hour day, right? Or an 8-hour.
Stay for lunch. And we have a party gift here for Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah, well.
Is it bologna?
Yes, sir.
My question is on privatization.
Yes.
Which this is, where actually does the money come from? In other words, the lottery's running, people are putting X number of dollars in it, and right now we benefit from the winnings, or, we benefit. But so, how does adding an outside company who they're going to make some kind of money on this? I mean, they're not just doing it to benefit Pennsylvania. So where is actually the money? I mean, the only thing I've heard is basically we're stabilizing, we're putting a floor to our yearly earnings. Well, hypothetically, couldn't the state also do that? In other words, a year when we benefit 100 million, we don't give 100 million we put X number of dollars away and use that for the floor from 1 year when we earn 35 million.
So that's a good question. So the state has a commitment that's already in law that Right now, it's at 27%, and we'll go back to 30% next year, of the net revenue must remain for aging service programs. So that's by law.
Yeah.
The discussion I think you're trying to bring up as well, if this company has incentives and receives income to make the lottery grow, should we be concerned about that? And I think our view, and the governor's view, is that it's the net revenue, that floor you talked about, that we need to be concerned about. And so I'm trying to get to, go ahead.
No, I'm not wondering, but I'm just saying is there's X dollars going in.
Right.
And so, and
People are
there's
spending.
Y dollars coming out.
Right.
I mean, by adding a different level on there,
Will it
I
impact-
don't see any extra money coming into the system.
Okay, so
So either our management of the lottery system is wasteful,
right,
or
we don't believe that. We have one of the lowest overheads on a state-run lottery in the country. But what we think about in terms of how those dollars come in is that minimum profit at that level, that $50 million. That's a floor again, and each and every year that will continue to grow. And we believe there'll be more money coming into the lottery because of the successful marketing and business practices of Camelot, that they know how to run a lottery and to make it grow, and we believe their practices will have an impact. We also know that there are going to be additional dollars related to the addition of some games, the games of Keno and online access to ticket purchases. And so we think both of those would allow for growth of games as well. And we believe we're within the authority to do that. That's been a question, another question you're not asking, but it's another question to do.
yeah, I mean, I have
Yeah.
been in New York State, or Massachusetts.
It's interesting, and I know people have different opinions about that. I know the governor's committed to social responsibility and responsible growth of gambling, and we have to consider that as we look forward. And Camelot itself, in the hearings before committees of the legislature recently, has expressed their concern and plans for growth in a socially responsible way.
You have a question?
Yes?
Yeah.
Question? Yes?
Is it true they're gonna have their offices in Delaware instead of having them in Pennsylvania and paying taxes here?
Initially, when they were starting business in the United States, they did incorporate in the state of Delaware. They've committed to incorporate in the Commonwealth, so they're coming to Pennsylvania.
And
They
how-
may keep their office in Delaware because they have probably interest in running lotteries in other areas of the country. So, we can't tell them where to have a headquarters or an office, but they are going to incorporate in Pennsylvania, and 80% of their business must be done in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania by contract.
I could just point out and stress again, we talked about the demographics, and the fastest growing segment here and pretty much across the state is 85 and over. And that's more expensive care. And what we're trying to team up with nursing home placement and do a better screening job on that, providing people with opportunities for in-home services. But that 85 and over population really is requiring more and more numbers of them, and more dire needs and hospice care, things like that, end-of-life care. It's costing us more and more to provide service to that group, and that's why we need more funds. And we're hoping we get it one way, shape, or form. That's where we're at.
Yeah. Is that it for now?
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.